everybody, welcome back to Review the Nerds. I'm Vincent.
And I am Mike. And today, we're reviewing Avengers!
Age of Ultron. Alright, so this is the second installment for Avengers and the end of Phase 2. We've been waiting for this one for a long time, and we were just totally excited about it, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, we had a whole episode where we ranked the MCU universe from our least favorite to our favorites. So check that out after this when you get a chance. Yeah. But this is, again, just a huge process in the making. A lot of effort and planning went into this, and if only DC had this kind of patience.
We always get a little DC diss in every video. I'm starting to feel bad. We're trolling them a bit.
It's warranted. It's warranted.
Basic plot for Age of Ultron is that the Avengers are reassembling to, take care of some loose ends from the previous films. They encounter two new enhanced humans, the Maximoff twins, Wanda and Pietro, also known in the comics as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Unfortunately, things start to go bad when Tony, aka Iron Man, and Bruce, aka the Hulk, decide to build Ultron, an artificially intelligent being designed to replace the Avengers and protect Earth from further alien invasions. But, as you can guess, Ultron decides that's not what he wants to do, and soon the Avengers are battling new enemies that are more powerful and more clever than the ones they've previously fought, and test them physically and mentally. And that's Age of Ultron for you, without giving out any big spoilers.
And also taking the most straight narrative explanation possible, because there are so many subplots happening in this movie.
Oh yeah, they give every character a little something to go through.
The movie has a main story which works and everything, but then it's like it's like the sequel syndrome that a lot of superhero movies get into, where you start overpacking, you start putting in too much stuff. And while Joss Whedon masterfully handles most of these story threads, it still feels a little bloated in places.
Yeah, because we got what, five or six new characters we're introduced to.
Ultron, Quicksilver,
Scarlet Witch,
Vision.
Yeah, we got Vision.
Spoilers!
Yeah. We got Vision coming in on this one, which I think they did a cool job with him.
Oh yeah, I was going to get to him later.
Yeah, we got cameos from the solo films coming into Avengers here, so there's a lot going on.
I feel like there's one aspect that was mishandled as a result of Marvel turning the third Captain America movie into the Civil War storyline. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for Civil War, but the one thing that I'm against is that the Russo brothers originally discussed how they wanted the third Captain America movie to emulate a spy film, and they want it to be a globe-trotting adventure where Captain America is after Winter Soldier, who's after Hydra, and they had this whole idea for it apparently originally, but then Robert Downey Jr. during negotiations to try and get him back for an Iron Man 4, he said, I don't want to do another Iron Man 4, but I will do another ensemble. So they managed to go, okay, you know what, he's popular, let's try to cram him into the next Captain America movie. And it was very much like the Batman Suit movie, where it started off as a Captain America movie, then it was a Captain America Iron Man movie, then it was a Captain America Iron Man Thor movie, then a Captain America Iron Man Thor Captain... It's just, they started adding in more and more and more characters. And the one thing that unfortunately got sidelined through a lot of this, it appears, at least at this point, is the Hydra storyline. And they kind of very, very quickly shove the culmination of the Hydra storyline in the very beginning of Avengers 2. It feels really rushed, considering all the build-up they did in the, Captain America movie. Like, suddenly they're like, okay, there's the last Hydra station. It's destroyed, let's celebrate. It's like, wow, really? You guys are taking care of the threat that quickly? I mean, we spent so much time building this up, and you guys are already resolving this?
Well, they were pretty much resolving it anyway on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so, I mean, the Avengers, finishing this whole thing off, just seems appropriate.
I just think that was way too fast to finish it off, considering the build-up they did. I mean, that's like building up the Empire taking over in Star Wars, and then they only make it to the second film, and then it's all disbanded. It's like, you're building this up.
It's like at the end of the third Star Wars film, where they take out one fleet of the Empire, and for some reason the Empire across the galaxy just gives up.
Well, besides rushing through the Hydra threat, I thought the beginning was pretty cool. They open up with a pretty ambitious camera move that soars through to the Avengers as they do some badass stuff. It's a mix of some practical with some CGI, and it's blended together to give the illusion of a single shot. The only issue is that there are moments where the CGI doesn't hold up well and fails to match the quality of effects delivered throughout the rest of the movie.
Oh, I thought the beginning was freaking kick-ass. I loved it. Hydra's busting out their top of the line weapons. The Avengers are completely working together as a team. They all know exactly how they're going to move. They're all like working together, talking, communicating. It's just like everything that was cool about the final battle scene at the end of the last Avengers happening in this. Instead of working together even more smoothly, they're more connected. It was just beautiful.
You're a little more enthusiastic than I was. I thought it was okay.
I was freaking out when I saw it. I was like, oh my god! I was like freaking, man.
It was okay. It was for me. It was a little rushed.
But this is not how Ultron was in the comics. In the comics, Ultron was created by Hank Pym, the first Ant-Man. But since they're establishing this universe with the upcoming Ant-Man movie, that Hank Pym of this universe is already an old man and never really got to be the Ant-Man that we know from the comics. They had to come up with a new storyline as to Ultron's origin story, which was this one. It's mostly Tony with Bruce Banner helping him out. So it's a different storyline. But I like basically the source of it too, because it links into what they're building up for the third Avengers film.
Overall, I really liked Ultron, but he also felt like the very standard AI gone wrong villain that we've seen used time and time again. Because of this, I do feel that Ultron is a weaker villain in comparison to Loki from the first film. Also, the motivations and reasons for the team up that he has with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch felt a little forced and contrived. I'm not sure what made the siblings believe that they could trust a scary robot that is obviously devoid of empathy or compassion.
Yeah, but they don't know that he's just out to get more than the Avengers. And besides, they grew up in a country riddled by war that was fueled by Tony Stark's weaponry, and so of course they're going to team up with anybody that's like, yeah, let's go kill Tony.
It did serve the plot, though, I guess. Like, Scarlet Witch's telepathic attacks in the Avengers allowed some nice opportunities for character development, like we finally got to see Black Widow's origin story. We also need to talk about James Spader as Ultron.
Yeah, he was great. His performance as Ultron was fantastic.
It's weird because he started off his career as a pretty boy. He started off his career doing like he did a couple of romance movies and shit like that. He was in Stargate, played the nerdy guy. He's never had like a really intimidating presence until recently, and now he's like intimidating.
Oh yeah, Eric has his role in The Blacklist, which I have a friend who's really into that show, and she just loves him. And when I told her James Spader is the villain for the next Avengers film, she was like, she was like freaking, but she didn't care about the Avengers film, but she was like, oh, James Spader. Yeah, no, James Spader, he does a great job here, and the cool thing is, he is like an evil Iron Man, the way he portrays Ultron. He's got that same charm and arrogance that Tony has, except, with no regard for human life. He just either sees you as a tool, a tool to be used to get to what he wants to get, or he's like, oh, I can just wipe you out. So yeah, he's like, if you take Tony Stark and remove any sense of morality out of him, you've got Ultron, which just is actually very poetic considering Tony is the one who makes Ultron. So it's like, it's very poetic that he ends up a lot like Tony.
Yeah, and what do you think about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch?
Very interesting. I mean,
Aaron Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen?
Yeah. I think they did a really cool job. I mean, they've worked together. They were in Godzilla together, so they had like an established relationship. So they already knew each other going into this film, so that probably helped ease things since they have to play brother and sister. You can tell they're very close. They're definitely always worried about each other, even with their superhuman abilities. I definitely believe their anger towards Tony Stark, that the rage and the despair they had growing up living in a war-torn country of Sokovia. Big thing about this, what everyone was of course talking about it, was like, you had the Quicksilver in Days of Future Past, and now we got Aaron Johnson playing this Quicksilver, and he wasn't as funny. Like in the Days of Future Past, Quicksilver was very high on comedy. This one, he cracks the jokes. He cracks the jokes. He busts your balls and all that. He's funny here and there, but he has a much more serious side.
My favorite part is when he tries to catch Thor's hammer and it just yanks him like.
Oh yeah, he goes flying. Oh, that part's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say that Days of Future Past version probably is my favorite. He was only on screen for 20 minutes, but he just sold it.
Well, because he was so funny.
Yeah. And this version I like a lot, too. I think Aaron Johnson, he does more of an action version of the character, a little bit more serious, a little more action-y.
Oh, yeah, because, the characters in those two films have totally different backgrounds. So...
Yeah. Elizabeth Olsen's gorgeous, and
she's beautiful. Oh my god.
I've
had a thing for her ever since that
Marcy Mary May or something.
Yeah, Triple M. I've had a thing for her since Triple M.
Yeah.
No wait, that was quite. There was a lot of M's. Scarlet Witch's powers are really cool. Scarlet Witch's powers in the comics have never been completely explained. Depending on who's the writer at the time, sometimes it's called her mutant power, sometimes it's called hex magic. You know, it really varies, but like her powers have so many different uses, from like telekinesis to some degree of telehypnosis or even telepathy. And her like just the way the powers, like the way she moves them, like she does it real like
shit. It's like a dance.
Yeah, it's like a dance, but ghostly and weird.
Hypnotic
and creepy.
dance.
Yeah, like it's hypnotic, but the way she moves her hands, it's like she's like working some kind of weird black magic. The way she does it, I really liked how Elizabeth Olsen played that off.
Then you have Vision. He's another element that was thrown into the very last second, but once he's actually there, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Vision. I mean, the thing about Vision is, spoiler, he was only introduced in the last half an hour of the film. So they didn't have a lot of time with him, but what time they did have with him, they used it very well to establish what kind of character he is, and his interaction with the team. That was something I was worried about because Vision. I mean, in the comics, he's built by Ultron and starts out as just a minion of Ultron. And Ultron builds him as his ultimate vision of destruction. So I was wondering, like, is that how? Because he wasn't showing up in a lot of the trailers, which indicated to me that he wasn't going to have a lot of screen time to begin with. So I mean, is he going to show up as a villain real quick and then automatically turn? But no, they did it a little differently, and it worked out. And he actually helped the team get through some of their problems. He actually helped patch things up because of how he came out and presented himself, and it was just really cool. And also really glad that they allowed Paul Bettany to continue on in this movie. Spoiler: Paul Bettany is the Vision, and really great too because his career was really in the tubes. He was really told by a big guy in Hollywood, like, hey, your career is over. Nobody wants to cast you in any movies. He was on the street giving up, and literally he gets a call from Joss Whedon.
He's on the street and he's married to Jennifer Connelly. Vision was really awesome. I thought that they crammed him in a little bit, but once he got going, he was great. I really liked the philosophical edge he brought to it, where he's kind of analyzing humanity, but from a more optimistic viewpoint, as opposed to Ultron, who sees it in a very negative viewpoint. Ultron sees humanity as like a virus needs to be wiped out. Hawkeye, who they really, really played up his role in this one. He had a lot more to do in this movie than he did in the previous
which was
one.
a great balance, considering, he didn't exactly have a lot to do in the first one, considering most of the film he was brainwashed. So it was really nice that they gave his character, some more background, showed what he's been up to since Captain America: Winter Soldier happened. So I thought that was really great.
I thought it was funny when she tried to brainwash him, and he was like, boom, he's like, already done that before, I'm not doing it again.
Yeah, I know. We really get to know Hawkeye a lot better in this film.
Yeah, they kind of played him up a bit, and there's even a funny inside joke where he's telling Scarlet Witch, he's like, "I have bow and arrow. What am I doing here? I don't know." And that's like Joss Whedon kind of commenting on all the people that had complaints about why he's matched up with all these gods. But even he's like, "I don't know why I'm here."
Which I always find it funny because I never heard anyone fucking complain about Batman amongst gods in the Justice League. I get it. He's Batman. He's incredible. He can do things that most mortal men can't, but he's still a mortal man amongst God. Nobody complains about that shit.
And then just throughout the rest of the cast real quick, everybody, of course, is fucking great.
Yeah.
I mean, that cast has they've proven themselves time and time again. I mean, Mark Ruffalo hasn't had as much opportunity as the other cast to really show what he can do as Hulk, because he's only been in this and the first Avengers, but I think he still is carrying and owning that shit. They should really give him his own movie.
Well, they can't. I found out the reason why they haven't given him his own movie, because that first Hulk film was Edward Norton. Apparently they did that in conjunction with Universal, so they need Universal's permission to do another film. But they're...
Wait, is that really the reason? Because the reasons I've heard is that they just, are waiting to get other characters established, and they want to get to him, but they're waiting or something.
They're waiting a long time, because Marvel's announced all their movies for the next 5 years, and he's only in ensemble films.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. We're not actually going to see the Hulk again until Infinity War. That's a few years away.
Is he in Civil War? Oh, wait, no, he's not.
No, yeah, the Hulk is not in Civil War.
That's too bad.
I mean, he'd kind of be a hell of a tipping point if he was in Civil War. I mean, basically, whichever team has Hulk, they're going to win.
And Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr., I thought they had some funny banter together.
Yeah.
I really liked Tony and Thor's contest about who has the better girlfriend and what she's up to. It was kind of like a dick measuring contest. The Stan Lee thing, too. Where he's like, Excelsior!
He's listed in the credits as himself.
He is?
Yeah, well, I was working yesterday, the credits one says Stan Lee himself. It makes sense because he did serve. He does have military on his resume.
I just loved it when he's like, "Go ahead, Sonny, I can handle whatever you have to dish out." And then he's like, Excelsior.
No, the other two guys in the background are just freaking petrified. They're like...
Yeah, that was like, what was that? That was like Thor from Asgard. It was some kind of crazy. It was aged like 2,000 years.
Yeah, it was like aged 1,000 years.
They're so good. The hammer scene where they're all trying to lift the hammer. Everyone's seen this in the trailers, advertisements. Like they're all taking turns, and I love how like Chris Evans, Captain America, tries to lift the hammer. He's the only one that nudges it just a little bit.
And that's that look of like complete vulnerability on Thor's face, and like like self-esteem just flooding like, whew, yeah, it's like wonderful, just awesome.
If any of them were to be worthy, it would have been Captain America.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Vision just picks up and trolls it around and hands it to him.
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's why they trust the Vision, even though Ultron built him, because he can lift up the hammer. So they're like, oh, he's cool. He just pulls it out of nowhere, like, we need to leave and beat Ultron now.
Now, for the cluster, I really don't think War Machine or Falcon really belonged in this movie that much. I felt they felt forced. There are too many elements at that point. There's too many things happening. I know they're trying to establish the new Avengers team, but it just felt forced.
Well, Falcon had such a small cameo anyway, so I don't see what the big deal. At least he tells you really quick. His whole cameo was about telling you what he's been up to since.
But he was in the finale too.
Well, yeah, but even then for a few seconds. I mean, the previous cameo was more important. At least he tells you like, oh, I've been looking for Winter Soldier while you've been avenging again. I want to see War Machine finally have a bigger part. He never actually gets to use his armor in the third Iron Man film to actually fight evil. The only time he hops in it to fly somewhere to go fight evil, and then boom, he gets hit, he's down. Next time in it, he's saving the president, he's flying the president off. There comes back to take out the fire guys, god damn it, the extremists. War Machine has never gotten a proper battle, except for like at the end of Iron Man 2. But even then, it's only like for like 3 minutes. Meanwhile, they spend him like 7 minutes flying around trying to shoot Tony.
I think Avengers 1 is a superior movie. I think that it flows better. I think that it's more exciting. I think that they do a better job with each character, giving them their own thing to do without distracting too much from the main story. This one, there's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of subplots. Things feel a little forced, like the romance between Black Widow and Hulk. I mean, there's no basis or foundation for that relationship.
I admit that part did feel a little forced, but at the same time it does make a little sense. They both view each other as horrible people no matter how much good they do. So there would, I mean, who else is Natasha Romanoff going to fall for but a man who's afraid of what of the level of destruction that he's capable of? A man who's like devastated entire cities. Yeah, the relationship makes sense. It's just not set up that well.
It's just kind of. I always hate it in movie sequels where they just decide arbitrarily we're gonna have these two characters have a romance, and they're like, the way they always handle these things too is like you audience all know that these two are gonna get together, right? We don't need to do any establishing. It was obvious, wasn't it? And it's like no, it wasn't obvious at all. There was nothing in the first Avengers film to indicate that there was a romance going on, and I felt it was a little forced. But yes, once we got along with it, once you caught up to it, it worked, I guess. It's just that it felt a little weird. But there's a lot of stuff like this in this movie that feels that way. Like a lot of the side plots. Like I know that Thor going out to find that pond, that Vision pond, where the hell that was.
Pool, yeah.
Yeah, the Vision pool. I know that was establishing what's going to happen in the next Thor film, and eventually it's going to lead to Thanos. But it felt kind of shoved in this movie. The man juggling all this stuff we're talking about, there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of things happening. But the man juggling it all is Joss Whedon. Returning from the first Avengers, he's back.
Yeah, once again, you can see his style sprinkled all over this movie.
His sense of humor especially.
Yeah, the humor, just like with first Avengers, all over there. Very witty, very clever, at the same time a bit of casualness, and the friendliness was the way they joke around with each other. Definitely believe, it helps cement the friendship of the characters that they've built together, and you believe that these people that really spend so much time together, and they all rely on each other and care about each other. And unfortunately, from what I've heard, that this is going to be his last Marvel film directing, because apparently he's had some behind the scenes issues with the Marvel execs, which is unfortunate because I mean it's Joss Whedon. We all know him. He's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dollhouse, and of course Avengers, which really, I mean, the Marvel movies were doing really well, and then he comes in, directs Avengers, and kicks it up into high gear, and it was great. So, Joss, thank you so much for being such a great part of the Marvel Universe. We're sorry you're leaving. Good luck with your future projects, but hey, you'll always be the man that made Avengers, in our opinion.
Yeah, it really wouldn't have worked as well as it did without him. That guy knows how to handle ensembles like nobody else. And you really got to give him props because this was not just an ensemble, this was a cluster of different things. And he managed, any other director, a weaker director would not have been able to juggle all these things. Like, there's so many things happening. He managed to find a way to handle it all with as much class as you could, considering. And actually, you made a pretty damn good movie. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is something we were touching on a little earlier, visuals and sounds. Now, Mike, you had a little bit of trouble. You said you had an issue with special effects in the beginning of the film.
Only in the beginning. Only the one shot. Everything else is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think for most of the part, the visuals were great, especially the huge battle scene between the Incredible Hulk and the Invincible Iron Man in his Hulkbuster armor, a.k.a. Veronica. That's what they call the Hulkbuster armor in this film, Veronica. And it was really sweet. I mean, the Hulkbuster armor is big, and Iron Man just flies in it and just wraps him up, and him and Hulk are just going at it, like the repulsor rays coming out of his hand are like 3 times as big, so it's like they're like repulsor cannons, like pow in the face. Hulk is just delivering the hardest, meanest, vicious blows he's got. They're literally tearing up the whole city, and it's a great action sequence, you know, like all these, you know, Iron Man's trying to like knock Hulk out at the same time, make sure our civilians aren't getting beat up. That's another big thing. If you watch the Marvel films, ever since Man of Steel came out, and then one of the biggest complaints about Man of Steel was how Superman didn't care about civilians, all the Marvel films since then have made it a point to show the heroes caring about the citizens that are in harm's way. And they definitely do it on several occasions in this film. They're really pushing a few to make sure people never have that complaint about Marvel films. I mean...
Listen up, DC. We keep taking stabs.
We take stabs. Prove me wrong, DC. Prove me wrong. And I don't mean I think no way I'm wrong and I think you're totally going to fuck up. I mean, I want to be wrong. So please do so. Please prove me wrong, because I want these characters to be good. But anyway, back to Avengers. So yeah, everything looked great. The final battle scene where it was the Avengers versus Ultron's army of Ultron drones. Very cool. I mean, it's just the Avengers whacking robots left and right. You know, the Maximoff twins join in.
The one complaint I have about the ending is it kind of felt like they were trying a little too hard to match what was done in the original. It's like, okay, you know, we need another huge army to fight the Avengers. Let's have a bunch of other... Like in the first one, it was alien drones, now it's robot drones, and it's like, you know, just an endless horde of things for them to fight and beat up and kill and maim. And it just felt kind of reminiscent of that to me. Like you know, let's try to one-up having the same thing happen again.
You know, they were definitely going with the same thing. I won't argue with you on that. Do you think it would have been better if it had just been like, I don't know, the whole team versus Ultron? Because that has happened in the comics where the entire team has to like work together to beam. Would you have preferred that?
It would have made it smaller, which, by the way, is interesting because Joss Whedon actually said that his goal with the sequel was to make it more intimate and smaller. I think the studio pushed him to try to make it bigger. I think he actually wanted to scale it back a little bit, so that might have been the studio trying to make him one-up what they did the last time. I don't know if that would have made it better necessarily, because there was a lot of exciting stuff with them fighting all these machines. It just maybe felt too much like what they tried to do in the first movie, all the way up to the fact that, you know, Iron Man has to fly up and destroy this thing before it destroys all civilization, and it just reminded me a little bit of it. Anyways, yeah, I liked the finale. I thought it was pretty exciting. We lose a character that we won't spoil here. I was pretty sad to see this one character go. We do have a death in this film.
Yeah, just like in First Avengers where we lost Phil Coulson this time, we're losing another character.
We didn't really lose Phil.
We didn't really lose Phil, but I got a feeling this character's staying dead. I mean, the other thing about this Marvel universe, in the next several films, they're introducing like a ton of new characters. Somebody's got to go at some point. You know, somebody's got to get killed off or whatever, they retire. So,
well, despite the similarities between the first one, it seems like they're trying to one-up it. I think the visual effects were fantastic. The fight scenes were great. It was cool.
Yeah, no,
it was a cool finale.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think, and you've brought this up, that the cluster is what holds the film back. I agree. I mean, there's just so much going on because you have so much characters, and they all deserve their own development and their own, you know, little moments in the story to make everything connected. And it's great. You know, they give each character their own thing in the film. And I'm glad they did that, but at the same time, it's still like, yeah, it is a bit of a sardine can. It's a little stuffy in there. So I think that's what holds it back a bit. I mean, for me, here's the first Avengers, here is Age of Ultron. It just beats it out by like a couple of slivers, in my opinion, in terms of quality. But, you know, that's the risk you run, and we're going to run that risk definitely again when we do Infinity War, because we're going to have even more characters involved in that one.
New directors, also the Russo brothers.
Yeah, the guys who did Winter Soldier are going to be the director of that. So the next Avengers film is going to have a completely different feel to it than the first two here because, you know, different director. But we know how the Russo brothers are going to be from Winter Soldier.
Well, the reaction to this movie, though, also, we should say that it does have a much less reaction critically than the first film. The first one has like a 94% approval rating. This one has like a 70-something approval rating, like 74 or something like that.
I think that's way too low.
I think it's a little low, but I do understand. Like, I've read the critics' criticisms, and I agree with them. Pretty much their criticisms are the same ones we have. It's just that it's clustered, there's a lot of things happening. Sometimes, you know, there's certain characters that don't necessarily need to be in it, like War Machine didn't necessarily need to be in it, Andy Serkis's character didn't necessarily need to be in it. Yeah, it could have been tighter, neater, a better package. The first Avengers really did such a good job with that. But this is still a worthy successor, I think. I think it's still a good film.
Yeah.
Sequels are rarely as good as the original. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I get that, but I definitely still give it about higher than 74%. To me, anything lower than 90 is just poor. I don't know. I guess I don't want to say poor judgment because, hey, everyone's got their opinions, you know. It's just, I don't know, when I'm watching this film, it gave me all the same thrills and excitements that the first one did. I was like geeking out, I was screaming, I was yelling, I was cheering, I was laughing, you know, I was like screaming like, oh yes, you know. There was no scene where Hulk grabs Loki by the leg and slams him back and forth. But no, I mean, this made me feel just like the first one did. So, I mean, to me, once again, it only beats it out by like a sliver or two at most.
Here's the difference for me, is that when I watched the first movie, it just flowed. And there was never a moment where I was taken out of the movie and I thought of it from a filmmaking standpoint. The whole time I was like, this is just an awesome ride, it's an awesome ride. This time, there were moments where I was taken out of it and I was kind of like, is this really necessary? Does this need to be here? So for me, that's why it goes one notch down from the first one. But yeah, good time. I mean, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be getting coming up here. Yeah. I hope they do Civil War right. There's a lot of potential for it to go either way. But it's Marvel, and they are much smarter at doing this than DC. So, you know, DC is doing their own cluster movie with Batman and Superman, with all the characters in that. And so it's kind of like these two movies are going to be competing against each other, literally and figuratively.
Oh yeah, because originally Captain America 3 and Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice were supposed to come out the same weekend, the very same day. But because like DC called that date first, and then Marvel was like, you know what, Winter Soldier did really good. We're going to release Captain America 3 on the same day. And
it is very similar.
DC blinked.
It is very similar business strategies, though, you know, and we'll have to see which one comes out on top. But anyways, do you have anything else to say about this one? I mean, I think it was good.
Nothing except for, guys, go check it out. Great film. All your favorite heroes are back. The villain is awesome, and it really sets things up for the next Phase 3. And I'm excited to see just more and more Marvel. Mike?
Yeah, if you haven't seen it already, then I don't know what the hell you've been doing this summer. But definitely check it out if you haven't seen it already. It's probably going to be in theaters through most of the summer with how well it's been doing. So check it out. It's a good ride. Not as good as the first, but still pretty damn good.
All right, everybody. So until next time, I'm Vincent.
And I'm Mike.
And we'll see you next time on Review of the Nerds.
Excelsior!